So I'm not here to like give you a lecture on what culture is. I'm sure you know exactly what culture is and all the things that come with it. However, there are parts about this that I think are important to understand as far as the values, the beliefs, the behaviors, everything that is in culture. And I'd like today, hopefully, to begin a new conversation with you about your role in culture and what that could be moving forward. Because we have the material, which is the tangible objects like art and things that you look at, visible, the events, the musical events you may put on. All that's like tangible culture. But there is also non-tangible, non-material culture. Stuff that are beliefs and ideas. Things that happen in a community that are non-tangible. And that's what this presentation is going to address. There we go. So why now? What's going on right now? In the past 5 years, we've had great economic growth in the state of Florida. There's been a ton of new developments that are happening. Of course, that does shift communities and what's going on. But also there's a lot of technology that's happening too. And a lot of youth on the phones a lot, that's a big thing happening now. How do you get people off screen? Well, that's where art and culture comes in. People put their phones down to go enjoy cultural events. And so it's part of the quality of life. I was on the Planning and Zoning Board. I saw something was happening in the community. I went out into the community to talk to business owners, local people about what was happening and their fear of gentrification, their fear that we're going to lose this or lose that. And when you look at what's happening in city structures, there's nothing set up in legislation or government that tracks culture. Like, do you have a database? Where's your database? Where's your biggest cultural event? How many people are there? How many cultural events do you have every year? What is part of your city identity for these big events that happen? So there's like no database. So how do you know you're going to lose anything in your culture if you haven't established what it is in the first place? So in order to go back to the city of Wilton and tell them, hey, there's all this worry in the community, and as a planning and zoning board member, I want to take care of what their fears are. They're all fears and projections because they have no statistics to go by as to whether or not, if we lose this business or that business, what exactly is going to happen. So in order to move forward, we have to look at, this is a new era, and the government somehow has to catch up to what's happening with us right now. So in order to do that, how does that happen without a bunch of red tape, a bunch of lawyers, a bunch of stuff happening? Why am I coming to arts and culture? Why? Why is arts and culture an important thing? Well, because arts and culture is where all the social justice happens. It's where the theaters, the museums, the galleries, the parks, the libraries, that's all considered part of the culture. And it's important to the community because as it does, it promotes a cohesion with people, it promotes cultural expression, identity, it reduces isolation, and most importantly, it does get us off our screens into the world. If you don't prepare, you could lose everything. If you prepare and nothing happens, then you lose nothing. So how can we prepare for cultural preservation? What are the points to making cultural preservation happen so that moving into the future, if gentrification or developments or things or laws coming from Tallahassee happen, is it going to hurt your community's culture? So I looked at what is the legislation that's happening anywhere in the United States. And what we had is the first one came out, which was a native federal for native tribal reservations as a tribal cultural preservation package to help Native American tribes. Then Chicago came out with a Black initiative for their community heritage. And also San Francisco has an LGBTQ plus cultural heritage strategy plan. So all those three documents basically had the same things in common in order to put together their legislation to move it forward. And this is an amalgamation of all those three legislations into one called the All Cultures Heritage Strategy Plan. And what this does, to break it down for you, is it gives another layer of outreach to the community. Because if we're at a place now where technology is almost, reducing our culture a little bit, to this homogenous technical world. Not only that, we also may have a political environment that is working to reduce certain cultural aspects. It's time for arts and culture in this new era to kind of take a lead in government, to move forward as being a committee that's not just about doing a little art here or a little thing for the kids over here or this there, or art walks are amazing, all these tangible things are amazing, but the intangible part of culture is something to really be looked at right now in order to move into the future. And so how this works is, in order for your community to participate in All Cultures Heritage Strategy Plan, you have to identify what is the culture, what's happening in your community. And in order to do that, you form working groups. And these aren't groups that are like you. Your commitment to this board is a commitment. You signed up for this. You're coming to these meetings, you're doing these things. These working groups are more a way to reach the community, to open it up for participation. Also, maybe work, with the local school and teachers to bring younger people in as well to participate. But the working groups are broken down into an arts and culture group, a business and economic development group, and that would include, land design and urban use, etc. A community services and education, and that includes health and well-being. And there may be others that may come up in this working group, but if you look at these three working groups, it's kind of setting up what a new era of government would look like coming from arts and culture. Just as a play for conversation, what if arts and culture ran the city? Just what if that could happen? And that art and culture became the priority of City Commission and what needs to happen in your city. And so as that moves forward, you now have these three working groups in your community that people are allowed to participate in. And through that, you work through looking at, all right, what is our culture? What is our culture when it comes to our businesses, when it comes to our economics, when it comes to our healthcare? What is our culture in each one of these things? What is important? And to start to categorize it like a library so that you know what your culture is about in your city. And as you're doing these working groups, there is a timeline. It'd probably take about 1.5 years to get all of this stuff put together, because it's, again, the government. There's it takes time to get things done. But having this layer of participation within your community offers your community another bridge to get to you. It's very intimidating for people to come into these boardrooms and speak community into the mic. You won't get young people doing it. They're petrified to speak like this. So it's outreach. It's go out to the community, and to reach out to them to say, hey, listen, we're putting together what our culture is, what's important to you, what's important to us, what is important to our city, and how many groups do we have? What's Black, Latino, Asian, what's going on in those cultures, So as these groups are working and they're ongoing, if there's anything that comes up that you can define threats, then that gets noticed. And here's a threat coming at this particular group. In Wilton Manors, I can just use the LGBT population because that's was predominant there. I think it was SB 142, the drag queen ban. I mean, you don't see drag queens walking on the streets anymore. That's gone in the culture in Florida. So as this happens, that's a piece of culture that's gone. But who's sitting here saying we should be outraged that that was taken away? And there's nothing in government that defines, hey, this was part of our culture, and now it's gone, or it's being attacked, or someone's coming after it. There has to be layers of somebody saying, this is ours, why are you taking it away? And when that happened in Wilton Manors, there was nothing City Commission could do. They couldn't do anything about it. They were not a sanctuary city at that point. Now that they are, maybe they can move stuff forward. What these working groups will do is give your community another voice, another layer for them to feel like they're being heard. That was a lot of what I felt happened when you get city commissions and you get these boards happening, that people feel like their voices aren't being heard. You're like, yeah, there's community input, you come in and say something, but they're being said in isolation. If it's in a working group and people say, hey, I've got this going on, and there's more people that join in, they kind of feel more comfortable doing stuff like that. And as you want to set up your working groups, that's how you can set them up. Each one can meet differently, they can all meet at once. A lot of benefits, if you were to be able to go ahead with this, it unites and it'll empower your community, because you're now valuing their voices and showing them that you're valuing your voices. Again, it adds that extra layer of community input for a city, which you could also use working groups for other things as well. If you have art installations you want to get feedback on or whatever, you have this access to these working groups. It offers incentives to reduce, screen time if, that you're working with whatever cultural activities may come out of that. I think it helps promote fiscal responsibility within the local government, because now you're going to have another way to set up priorities for what's important. People can send out surveys in cities, but if you have working groups and they're actually saying, hey, we felt that this is really important, then now you have another way to express fiscal responsibility to your community of your people running your city commission. That quality of life is going to keep your residents local. They're not going to move away. It's going to attract more people. It's going to make your city stronger, your culture. And this strategic plan does line up with the divisions in arts and culture for the state of Florida. So it's eligible for grants. And the part about this that I really like is that this adds a layer of equity that takes it beyond what government usually does with equality. And I can show you what that means. This is kind of a fun little demonstration of government. When it's writing, it writes for equality, that everyone gets the same thing, everybody's treated equally, which is really great. But sometimes the little guy gets left out. And so equity is that extra effort of someone putting that little box over there. This is what we're talking about. This is why I'm talking to you. And I think arts and culture is the area to move forward in our new era and in the future. And to work on equity. This is an equity proposal to take. This is an equity thing to take to your community, to see what you can do with it in order to log, like a library, what your culture is, what you want to preserve, how you want to preserve it, identify what the threats are so that you can deal with these threats when they happen and you're ready for them, because it is evergreen. There is part of a grant that it's to provide resources for capacity building in arts and culture community. And capacity building is social and economic development. So this aligns these working groups, whatever you would need to kind of help run them. So for some financial assistance, I think there's $25,000 for that. And so the ask for Wilton Drive Voice here with you today is for you to consider this, to discuss it, see if it's something you want to vote on and do and take to City Commission. I can present it with you to them. You can take this and rework it into your own type of thing if you want to take it to City Commission. You can work out how you want to run the working groups. You can work with Wilton Drive Voice and we can help you run the working groups, or you can do it on your own, or you can have other suggestions. I'm just, kind of letting you know that this path could start here, and it could start with you. And I want to empower you in your position in arts and culture to take your seat really seriously as we move into the future, because culture is what's at risk in the future. Culture is what's at risk. The first thing City Commission is going to ask you is, how much is this going to cost? Well, one thing that I have is the legals were done with this through these other programs. that have been out there. The LGBTQ Cultural Heritage Strategy Plan in San Francisco, legals were done. Legals were done for the Black Cultural Initiative, Heritage Initiative, in Chicago. So these are like plug and play legals. So you're not going to have a big legal bill. Your city attorney will just read over the plug and play of what they are. And so the legals, you have your initial questionnaire that goes out to the community. How do you start? You send out a questionnaire to your community. You end up doing working group invites, and you have a contact info list for that. You have a commitment form that they can sign up just to possibly participate in 3 working groups or whoever you want to set it up. There's an 18-page toolkit guidebook for each working group. So each working group is set up with a guidebook that gives them instructions on how they're going to approach looking at their community, looking at their culture, cataloging what's happening with events or things that may be going on, and looking at everything in their department of what that culture may be. And so as we move forward, you're able to have the tools of the legals done, which is basically just a city attorney review for you. So it's a very minimal expense to get started. And as it grows, if you need to get more money, great. I'm working on, I have businesses that are supporting the working groups for what we're starting in Wilton Manors. And like they'll supply pizza or whatever. So, you know, it could be kind of also fun, sponsored by businesses to get the business communities involved. Also, businesses are attached, surprisingly, to a lot of the culture that happens. You know, their businesses are open, they want to see these events come here. So they're very supportive of, it's been very supportive so far, everything that's happened with it. So I think that moving forward, that would be, I just would ask you to consider talking about this and seeing if it's something that you want to bring to your city commission. So.